Alright guys, this is Shamaka with the OCG Banned List for March 1st in 2013. I've done this video in German before and a lot of people asked me to do it in English because I was giving my thoughts on the banned list. And here it goes. Alright, first off, I want to say this is not the official OCG ban list. The official OCG ban list can be found on YugiOhCard.com when Konami thinks it's time to release it, which is probably 3 days before March 1st. So, this is only what has been leaked and what people on Shriek think is official, and since Shriek has been a reliable source so far, I think they only had one fake list put up as official so far, so I think it's pretty safe to assume that we can handle this as a OCG ban list, even though it's not totally official and it's not very fixed, so there's still hope, guys. There's still hope. Alright, first off, I'll tell you about what I think about the changes, and then I'll tell you my opinion on what's missing on the banned list. Alright, first off, what's being banned is Sangan and Zenmaity. Alright, banning Sangan has been discussed on the last list as well, and in my opinion, that's a good choice, because Sangan is a way too flexible searcher, and especially with the semi-restriction of Ryo, it's getting even better. So yeah, I mean, like, the semi-restriction of Ryo is not an argument to ban Sangan, obviously, but that's just another point that adds up to the fact that Sangan can be banned, in my opinion. It weakens the tour guide engine, meaning that if you want to run tour guides now, you cannot just run 2 tour guides and nothing else, because that will result in a big inconsistency. As soon as you draw 2 tour guides, you've got two dead cards in your hand, or you have to special summon 1 from hand, which is a minus. So you have to resort to running stuff like Turbos or Night Assailant or possibly Dark Resonator, stuff like that, which all are not very good cards. I mean, Night Assailant is good, but in some decks you just don't want to have to run Night Assailant just to justify to run tour guides. Apart from Dark World, we can obviously just run 2 tour guides and triple bro. So banning Sangan would definitely weaken the tour guide engine. It would also in some way weaken Dino Rabbit, because without Sangan you cannot search for Rabbit that easily anymore, and the tour guide engine with it, which is essential in the deck, is just not as good anymore. But for example, in Dino Rabbit, you can easily run Turbos and shit like that. Even though it's inconsistent, it just adds to the strategy. So the tour guide engine in Dino Rabbit is not that bad anymore. And well, next up is Zenmaity and Wind Up Magician. Wind Up Magician is limited and Zenmaity is banned on this list. This pretty much kills Wind Up, because with 1 Magician and no Zenmaity, they cannot do that ridiculous loop anymore. This is still a pretty good control deck with stuff like Wind Up Red and Factory, and Rabbit on itself is a really good card still with Factory, but they cannot capitalize on their plays and dish out big armies of XYZs in 1 turn anymore. So I think that's good. It does not quite kill the deck like people say, it just puts it on a tier 2, 2.5 probably level, which does not quite kill it, but kills it compared to where it was before. Before it was one of the top tier decks, and was probably one of the hardest decks to beat if they start Magician Shark. So right now it's a rather good control deck, and it has to be adjusted a lot in order to still be deemed playable on a tournament level. Next up is One Day of Peace. One Day of Peace is limited to 1 on this list because I think the only reason that really makes sense for me is the Gishki Loop FTK. I have a feature in my German channel of that deck where you pretty much just sit there and go through your deck and recycle Ewigishki Mind August and keep drawing until, and then you, at one point you have gone through your deck and you keep just recycling your combos, draw and make your opponent increase their hand size, and you can pretty much do that to, I don't know, like 35-minute extend, and then start playing out your winning condition, stuff like hand destruction, and then eventually card destruction them for game because they will deck out, and then win this match with a 1-0 score because you've been wasting all the time of duel 1, all the 40 minutes, and then not give your opponent the chance to side. Obviously, your opponent could admit defeat, like pretty much not admit defeat, but just concede the first duel as soon as he sees that you're doing the loop, if he knows the loop. But seriously, it can't be good for the game if you have a deck around where your opponent's only chance to win the match against is to concede a duel. That's also the reason why they banned Victory Dragon and stuff like that, because in Japan, as far as I'm concerned, you are not even allowed to concede one duel while it's your opponent's turn. So therefore, yeah, obviously Konami doesn't want this deck to be around, so they would limit 1 day of peace, and that takes a little consistency, and I think that's a pretty good measure, because the deck has not been around that much. It hasn't won any big tournaments. It's just a nuisance, and it's been discussed a lot on the judge board. So yeah, rather preventive strike, I think. Alright, next up is Solemn Warning, limited to 1. I really like that card, limited to 1, because Solemn Warning is such a card you don't want to have to face double warning and Elijah in your opponent's first turn. Because as soon as your opponent starts, or as soon as one player just in general starts up with a monster like Legendary 6 Samurai, Shien, or Evil Zalakia, stuff like that, and the Solemn Warning set, it's a lot harder to play around that monster. I mean, like, it's already very hard to play around Elijah or Shien, but if they have a back row, and a good back row like Solemn Warning on top of that, it's a lot harder. Like, if you have a certain amount of cards which you could use to force them to negate with Elijah, and then you could probably follow it up with a Dark Hole or something to get rid of it, and you use up all those cards to dish out the combo, and then they do not have to use the Elijah effect, that just have that additional warning, so they can sit on the Elijah with the 2 materials and still negate your stuff with the warning. Most of the time you're just screwed first turn, and that's just not the way a game should be. You should in the game you should not be able to set up a field which is so hard to come over that easily, like Dino Rabbit can, for example. That and warning adds to that. So warning on 1 is a good measure, and I like that. Okay, next up is semi-restriction. Tsukuyomi is semi-restricted now. I mean, like, it went from 0 to 1, and it didn't see any play, and well, now it's from 1 to 2, and what the fuck? Just unlimit that shit. I mean, like, it does not see any play. It's slow, flip effects are not in play with Mermail and Prophecy around. There will not be any flip effects anytime soon. I mean, like, we have double Nobleman of Crossout. Even if it would become a problem, you would just go double Nobleman of Crossout, or Shield Crush, or possibly just nuke it with Black Roses, banish it with BLSs. There's so many cards that deal with flip monsters. Just can't see how Tsukuyomi on itself will be good, and we don't have a Monarch or Monarch-like metagame anymore, so Tsukuyomi on itself does not run over many cards. So just in general, that card is beyond brokenness. I mean, like, it's not even close to being broken. Okay, next was Thunder King Ryo. Thunder King Ryo limited to 2 is kind of strange, because most of the decks would run 2 at max anyway. Probably splash in 1 in the main deck, side a second copy, maximum side into the 3rd copy. But just in general, Thunder King was not being played 3 times that much anyway. And the card itself is not broken, I think. The card itself prevents a lot of plays and helps you set up a good field. But obviously it disturbs Mermail and Prophecy in their setup, but Ryo itself is not broken at all. So that's one of the cards on the list that I think I would not have put that way. But it doesn't really bother me that much anyway, so yeah, Thunder King on 2, whatever, fine. Okay, next up is Advanced Ritual Art. Advanced Ritual Art on 2 is pretty interesting, because Advanced Ritual Art gives ritual decks a nice push. The first 2 ritual decks that come to mind are Demise, King of Armageddon, this OTK, and Herald of Perfection. Especially the second one, I think it might see a lot of play now, because Herald of Perfection, along with Christia, pretty much counters Prophecy, and Herald of Perfection just on its own is not that broken anymore, because, for example, the other top tier deck, Mermail, can easily kill it with if they have a Megalo and heavy infantry along with another Atlantine in hand, because they can always set up their chain so that heavy infantry is chain link 1 kills Herald anyway, and that way the deck is not really broken. You can use it. You can create locks along with Christian stuff, but it's not very consistent just because of the Advanced Ritual Lord back on 2, and I think that's a good measure, and I can support that as well. Okay, and no longer restricted. I cut that very short. Spore back on 3. Whatever. Who the fuck would ever play 3 spores? Done. Collude back on 3. That's kind of interesting because Blackwings, along with their Icarus attacks and their swarming capabilities, they can probably cause a little trouble for Prophecy, but just in general, Collude back on 3 is not that much of a menace. Like, how long is it that you have not seen Blackwing players attack for game with double Collude or something? And like, the deck doesn't see play. Give it a slight push. I think Collude back on 3 is better than Gale back on 3, for example. Gale back on 3 would probably be too much and give the deck too much of a push, but Collude back on 3 is fine. I don't mind. Lumina back on 3, yeah, please, everybody, please, 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 please run Lightsworn. I love you. If you run Lightsworn, I love you. Free games, free wins. Alright. If you don't sack the JD in the right moment, you just die. Alright. Have fun with your triple Wolf, triple Necrogauntlet in the first hand. I love that. Okay, enough said about that. Sheehan Smoke Signal back on 3 is funny, because that kind of hints us to run more 6-Sam, because 6-Sam can dish out Nature Beast and Sheehan first turn, and that in turn causes big trouble for Prophecy, because Prophecy runs like, I don't know, 20, 22 spells, and if you start Nature Beast, that's a pretty hard field to come over for Prophecy if they don't start, I don't know, like Priestess and can protect it for some thought. So Sheehan Smoke Cycle back on 3 is one of the measures that weakens Spellbook's Prophecy without actually limiting or banning anything they run. So I think it's a good measure, and I can like that. Like, for example, 6-Sam mining triple D Fissure would be the best meta call if you go by what people expect, which would be a metagame consisting of 2 top tier decks, Mermail and Prophecy. So Sheehan Smoke Signal back on 3, excellent. Okay, what's missing in the list, in my opinion, is Rescue Rabbit. Rescue Rabbit should still, even with Sangan banned and Sun Warnings limited to 1, be restricted to 1, just to lower the probability of starting Rabbit, because even now, Rabbit with Macrocosmos first hand pretty much kills the 2 top tier decks and puts a lot of pressure on other decks, and it's all a little luck dependent, and I don't like luck dependent decks, because Rabbit is such deck, if they start the nuts, you don't do shit. It's just the way it is. If they start the nuts, like Rabbit, Macrocosmos, Warning, Solemn Judgment, and Starlight Road and Lance, for example, you just don't do shit. They just win. And as I said before, you should not have decks around that start first turn, start godly, and win the game just by that. Next card's missing on the list is Heavy Storm. Heavy Storm needs to be banned. I fucking hate Heavy Storm, especially in a metagame like the one we are facing right now with the upcoming list. You cannot have triple MST, Heavy Storm, and triple Night Beam in a metagame where you have 2 top tier decks that are easily capable of spamming out a lot of big beaters, a lot of big monsters, and OTK anything that doesn't run Tragedy or Gauss. Because like that, nobody can really set much. The main problem is triple MST and Storm. In a metagame where you have triple MST and Storm, if you have more than 1 protective card in your first hand, you always have to gamble. Like, if you set 1, you bet against the odds, because the odds are triple MST and 1 Storm in deck. The odds that they have an MST are 3 times as high as that they have a Storm. So if you set just 1 of your two cards, they are much more likely to have the MST and rush over you than having the Storm. But if you set 2 and they have the Storm and they, for example, cannot rush you, you might just lose because they have that +1 of Storm and rip you off all your back rows, and then you just can't do shit because you don't have any additional protection. So Storm on itself is a very, very imbalanced card, but along with triple MST, is just ridiculous. It's just a matter of luck. I've had that situation so much in Dueling Network. Like, I play against some random scrub, and they draw the MST, and I just straight up slam it on the field. Oh, the card says, destroy one spell trap card on the field. Oh, there's a spell trap card on the field. Let's activate it, because I can. That's just not the way the game should be. Like, just randomly activate cards because you can activate them. You could re-allow Pot of Greed. Every fucking scrub can activate a Pot of Greed and profit off that. It's the simplest card in the game, and it's banned for good reason. So I think Heavy Storm should be back to 0, or Heavy Storm could stay in the metagame, but then Mystical Space Typhoon would have to be limited to 1. My thoughts on that. Okay. Next up, I know, and it's no point discussing that, but it would still be worth like one thought, that Mermail and Prophecy both cannot directly be touched by this list because they're too new. Like, Prophecy gets support in a lot of the Tachyon Galaxy, I think, and Mermail got support in Cosmo Blazer, so we cannot expect Konami to ruin their own decks they just brought out, because Konami, after all, is a company, and the company always needs to make money, and so, yeah. Stay straight, guys. You cannot expect Konami to kill their decks they're selling their booster sets with. Okay, and that's about it, because as of right now, I'm not really too sure what to think about the list in general, but I think there's a few important cards missing, and it might result in players going back to a Taylor-like format where you spend 1,000 euros on a Prophecy full blinged out deck, and then there's nothing but like 2 to 3 different decks back in the metagame. I have not talked about Fire Fist at all, because I think Fire Fist is shit. The deck's so fucking bad, and everybody hypes it, but yeah, whatever. So I'm mainly looking at Mermail and Prophecy right now, and those two decks might really become a problem. But we will see, and depending on how creative players are and how innovative the builds will be, probably the metagame will spread again, and after a lot of the Tachyon Galaxy, we might have 5 to 6 different play decks as well. Especially with his Arsenal 7 dishing out levels and the new Evil Swarm stuff. So we don't know. Let's give it a shot. It might be one of those lists where everybody after like 1 or 2 months starts screaming for an emergency ban of something, but we will see. Give it a chance at least. Okay, give it a chance. Yeah, these were just my 2 thoughts. I think the video's been way too long already, so leave me your thoughts in the comments. Thumb up if you like this video. Do not thumb down if you think the list is shit, because then you don't know what the thumb up, thumb down function of YouTube is for. And give me your thoughts on broken combos, broken decks after this list, because I'll gladly test for you. I'll gladly build a deck around that, and gladly do features on YouTube for that. So please just shoot me your thoughts and give me ideas. Alright, that's been it, and I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more videos.